Hey guys, this is Anime Z here, and today we're going to be doing the first part of a new MHA What If I'm gonna do, which was suggested to me in my live from a while back. What if Deku had an Anti-Quirk? There's nothing much I want to say in the intro, so without further ado, let's get into the video.
Slick talker since a jit. Winter time, all the time, ooh, yeah. Look at the way that I move, swag. Disrespectful and I'm rude, okay. I had cocaine in the school.
Firstly, I'll briefly describe the abilities of this sort of Anti-Quirk. The fundamental ability is that he has enhanced muscular ability, but there is also another aspect that gives the quirk its name. He can affect other people's quirks in 3 different ways. The first aspect is nullify. He can nullify people's quirk power. The next is absorb. He can take away their quirk power as such to fuel his very own muscular ability. Finally, duplicate. He can create more quirk power by cloning someone's quirk power and absorbing that power. These 3 can only be switched between each other every 15 seconds. Deku doesn't get the full grasp of his quirk until after a while. His muscular ability is seen as he is the fastest in his class without the use of quirks, the strongest without use of quirks, and many other things. Deku believes he has a pretty boring quirk because he's just a little stronger and faster, and when people use quirks he's back at the bottom. He sees his full quirk when Bakugo is bullying that kid at the playground. Deku stands in between the kid and Bakugo and says, "I will stop you, Kachan." Bakugo says, "Just because you're strong, Deku, you won't be able to handle these explosions." Bakugo then creates mini explosions in his hands for intimidation. Deku runs at Bakugo in rage and his eyes start to glow red. This means that he is using the nullify aspect of his quirk for the first time. Bakugo tries to launch an explosion at Deku, but Deku sprints to the side and jumps at Bakugo. He lands a punch in his face and instinctively nullifies his quirk. He throws several more punches, continuing to make Bakugo's quirk power weaker. Bakugo tries to launch an explosion, and the explosion is barely powerful enough to cause serious damage to Deku. Deku just gains a bruise on his arm and a little bleeding too. Bakugo thinks, "What? Why is my explosion so small? I don't understand." Deku kicks him off of his feet and says, "Then I'll take away your explosions." Bakugo grasps his stomach in pain and runs at Deku in a fit of rage. Bakugo throws a punch, but Deku dodges and follows with several punches and a final tornado kick. Bakugo launches an explosion and it doesn't even reach Deku. He falls to the ground and passes out. Deku then looks at Bakugo's underlings and his facial posture is enough to strike fear into them and make them run away. Deku gets up and runs over to the kid. He cuts his quirk power before he gets the kid up just in case, and the kid says, "Your quirk is amazing, you completely destroyed Bakugo. And he's like one of the strongest kids ever." Deku says in joy, "Really?" The kid says, "Definitely, you're gonna become a great hero of that quirk." Deku wipes his tears and says, "Thank you." Deku, after this, gets his quirk analysed by a quirk doctor. Inko brings Deku to a quirk doctor for his quirk to be analysed. After a series of tests Deku has to go through, he comes to a conclusion. The quirk doctor says, "Your son has a quirk called Anti-Quirk. He does have a muscular enhancement as he's most likely noticed, but he also has a whole different aspect of his quirk. He can affect other people's quirks when he comes in contact with the person. He can do 3 different things from then on. He can either nullify the person's quirk, which is the quickest but requires the most energy. Absorb, where he takes the quirk power of the person, which is less energy depriving but takes longer. And there's duplicate, where you can duplicate a person's quirk power to make himself stronger. This takes much longer but requires little energy, and the time only increases with more quirk power being duplicated. The nullify and absorb types have no effect on mutation type quirks, however. He has a timer between each aspect of his quirk he uses, which lasts 15 seconds. When he takes quirk power or duplicates quirk power, it can only be held for 45 seconds before the absorb power is gone, and the nullifying effects are also gone after 45 seconds. This doesn't happen right away though, because the power rejuvenates back again after 10 to 15 seconds. After this quirk checkup, Deku begins to secretly train his quirk and see what works best and what doesn't. Through this, and him also just getting older, he becomes very strong and fast. He is now in the class of superhuman when it comes to strength and speed. Deku then challenges Bakugo again when he's much older, nearing the end of his time at Haldera Junior High. Bakugo says, "You think you can take me on? My explosions are now too powerful for your measly nullifying." Deku says, "Oh, is that so?" He then begins to use Absorb, which gives him glowing green eyes instead of red. He runs at Bakugo and gets hit with a huge explosion. Deku does get some injury from the attack, but it's not too bad. Deku gets up and runs back at him. Bakugo thinks, I never thought he could become this fat. Out of nowhere, he gets punched in the gut hard by Deku. Deku follows with a kick to the chest, and then he grabs the neck of his shirt and slams him into the ground. Deku picks him back up and throws him. Bakugo stumbles on the floor but quickly follows with a double hand explosion. Deku dodges the explosion by just sprinting to the side, then he runs back at Bakugo. Bakugo says, what? He's even faster than before and I swear he was just sprinting. Bakugo just about dodges his punch but gets elbowed in the neck. Bakugo launches an explosion before he gets too far and sees that his explosion is weaker. Deku's able to take it but gets moderate injury. Bakugo falls to the floor and quickly bounces back up with an explosion. Deku grabs his wrist and faces his hand upwards. I didn't even see his hand. What's going on? No, I can't lose. He shoots an even more powerful explosion. My power is coming back. Good. Deku flies back and thinks, oh yeah, my power will deplete and his explosions will get stronger. I have to make sure he doesn't get his explosions back. Deku zooms at Bakugo and ducks under his incoming explosion. Perfect, Deku thinks. He bounces up and lands a powerful uppercut to his chin. Bakugo coughs blood and gets sent a good meter into the air before landing back on the ground. Deku says, I win, Cat-chan. Bakugo shouts, no! In a fit of rage, Bakugo gets up and raises his hand, intending on firing an explosion, but his hand drops and falls onto Deku. He has taken so much injury and used so much energy in full power explosions that he just passes out. Deku steps back in shock and Bakugo falls to the floor. Deku thinks, I actually did win. Finally, I've surpassed you. After this, Bakugo has restless nights, trying to get more powerful and eventually overpower Deku once again. The problem is Deku will get stronger too. The end of Aldera Junior High comes and the teacher says both Deku and Bakugo will be taking the entrance exam for the UA Hero course. Everyone thinks Deku can't do it, but that one kid from years ago says, just you wait, Izuku's definitely gonna pass. Bakugo grunts under his breath in fury from that comment. Deku after school encounters Bakugo. Unlike canon, Bakugo says, I'll make sure to take you down, Deku. I know both of us will make it into that school. Deku says, thank you. You won't take me down though. Deku gets his stuff and walks right past Bakugo and Bakugo is enraged but doesn't do anything about it. Deku still gets snuck up on by the sludge villain and he tries to use Nullify. It has no effect. He'll be stuck with this for 15 more seconds. Deku uses his raw strength to rip himself out and thinks, oh yeah, Nullify and Absorb don't work on mutation types, so I'll have to use my duplicate to strengthen myself. His eyes glow blue, showing after a few seconds, and he rushes into the sludge. He fuels his power for seconds and seconds, about 10 seconds, and then he rips out from the sludge. Deku turns and then sprints right at the sludge villain, intending to rip the sludge villain to shreds. This is what it does, and the air buildup around his body also aids in destroying the sludge villain. All Might arrives and sees Deku scraping up something. Deku turns and when he sees him, he drops a bottle in awe. Deku says, All Might? All Might says, yes, it's me. I'll need that bottle. Looks like you took down the sludge villain all by yourself, huh? Deku says, yeah, I guess. While he's throwing the bottle at All Might says, okay, I'll be off now. Deku waves shakily and All Might jumps away. This means Bakugo won't get encountered by the sludge villain, but Deku still sees All Might again. Deku doesn't know it's All Might and almost walks right past him, but he eventually gets the signs. Deku says, All Might? All Might says, shh, and yes, it is me. I really liked what you did out there. I don't know what you did specifically, but I know you did something good if you tore that sludge villain into that many pieces. Deku chuckles nervously and says, yeah, my quirk affects other quirks. I can nullify someone's quirk power, take someone's quirk power and fuel myself, making me stronger, and duplicate someone's quirk power, then fuel myself with it. All Might replies, that is a great quirk. I can say that is good for my quirk, one for all. You see, my quirk has been passed on for generations and generations, and I think you are perfect for the next generation. Deku replies in shock, are you being serious? All Might says, yes, of course, your quirk is perfect for it. Will you accept my offer? Deku says, of course. After this, Deku trains with All Might, and unlike the canon, he gets one for all pretty much straight away. This is because his quirk gave him like a super athletic body and he can handle much more power of one for all. He's even stronger than himself at the start of the training than him after the training in canon. Deku's training is now more learning to hone one for all and learn its different different strengths and weaknesses. Deku also gets to spar All Might himself every now and then, but All Might is barely trying, and Deku forcefully absorbs his quirk power beforehand. This makes him as strong as possible for the spar for about 30 seconds. By the end of training, Deku can use One For All with no real injury, and he also has gained more knowledge and skill with his quirk. Deku takes the entrance exam as in canon, but when he falls, he just catches himself with one hand and flips forward onto his feet. Uraraka watches in awe as Deku just continues to walk away. The stuff next happens in canon, so let's get to the actual practical exam where things change. Deku runs in and manages to get 30 hero points. Deku uses Absorb on someone's quirk and makes him stronger. This is a grave mistake as he masses minus 15 rescue points for stealing someone else's power, altering their exam stats, and the person with the quirk gains 10 villain points. Deku still notices Uraraka trapped below a 0-point robot and uses this moment to test his ability to see how far he's come. Deku jumps up with One For All, and while mid-air he controls One For All in his arm and lands a devastating punch at the robot. The robot's head just flies off with smoke following it, and the robot falls to the ground. Deku runs over to Uraraka at superhuman speeds and says, while getting her out from the rubble, "Are you okay?" Uraraka says, "Yeah, at least now I am." Deku says, "Good." Deku zooms away and Uraraka says, "Wow, he is so fast." He finishes the test with 30 villain points and 45 rescue points, which would have been 60. This puts him at second place, just slightly behind Bakugo's 77 points at 75 points. So that will conclude the first part of What If Deku Had an Anti-Quirk. I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, there won't be a like goal, I will just see how good this video does. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.